Controller Kevin Day and Fire Controlman Gary Voorhees, both from the Princeton, served together in the ship's Combat Information Center. They saw them first, whatever it is they are.
They wanted to show themselves, whatever they were. I don't think they wanted anything really to do with us.
They were literally breaking the laws of physics in my eyes.
These sailors are here for truth and vindication, and their story goes back over a decade to a time and place that marked a departure for all of them, both in their Navy careers, but also in their knowledge of the limits of man's technological understanding of our world. Looking out over the ocean toward the horizon, sun, sea, and sky form an endless vista, a never-ending cycle of tide, wind, and waves. Here, far from shore, strange events have unfolded. These stories stretch the boundaries of our imagination and challenge our beliefs. This is a true story of such events from the accounts of the sailors and naval aviators who experienced them. Professional military service members who want the world to know that what they encountered is real. Even more troubling, our military has no explanation. The answers seem to elude everyone, like reflections on the waves, yet they are out there. November 10th, 2004. 90 miles southwest of San Diego, California, in the Naval Operations Area, the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group and her complement of warships and the aircraft of Air Wing 11 are conducting a routine 2-week training exercise. Nearby, the guided missile cruiser USS Princeton has been tracking unknown aircraft that appear and disappear from her sophisticated Aegis radar screens. The Spy-1 Bravo radar is one of the most advanced sensors ever deployed. Princeton's main role is air defense of the strike group, and Operations Specialist Senior Chief Day is in charge of protecting the airspace around the Nimitz.
And my job was to man the radars and ID everything that flew in the skies. And I also sat a position called Anti-Air Warfare Coordinator, where if we ever had to go to war, I was the guy that was going to launch the missiles and kill shit. In addition to that, I was an air intercept controller. When the Super Hornets take off the carrier, I'm the guy that takes control and takes them to the fight and gets them home safe. And there was a lot of experience in that room. The captain had 28 years, I had 18 years. And the Aegis ship is our newest weapons system afloat. It's got the Spy-1 radar system, the phased array radar system, and I was an expert on that.
Inside the Combat Information Center, Chief Day's attention is focused on a group of unknown aircraft on the Spy-1 screen. He's trying to identify them.
I was on watch, and we were probably 100 miles, I forget how far exactly that day we were, off the coast of San Diego southwest, kind of off the coast of Mexico, Baja. And I started to notice these weird tracks that were popping onto my radar coverage right around San Clemente Island. And the reason why I say they were weird, because they were appearing in groups of 5 to 10 at a time, and they were pretty closely spaced to each other, and they were 28,000 feet going 100 knots tracking south. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, that's kind of odd. I mean, I don't know anything that flies like that. They weren't on the comm air routes, the commercial airline routes. I wasn't really that concerned about them. I didn't consider them hostile for any reason at all. Another watch or two, as I'm watching, the same formation appeared again. And over the course of 3-4 days, it probably counted up to that point, groups of 5 to 10 at a time. There were probably 50, 60 tracks by then.
Today, Kevin and Gary are still looking for answers. They've known each other for over a decade since their Navy days. Gary was a third-class petty officer and fire controlman back then.
I worked on the Aegis computer system on a CG-59 guided missile cruiser, the USS Princeton. I'm in charge of CEC and data recording and maintaining and operating all the mainframes that run the system.
They're both becoming increasingly frustrated in their attempts to ID the strange aerial objects, which have no transponders and fit no known flight profiles.
The guys that work on the Spy 1 Bravo radar, they had come across and said they needed to take the system down for recalibration because they were getting clutter or ghost tracks, and they needed to recalibrate to get rid of them. Then once they did finish all that recalibration, bring it back up, the tracks didn't disappear. They were still there, but they were actually sharper and clearer.
They were doing diagnostic tests on everything we had to make sure it was not a system malfunction. And it turned out that it wasn't. These were actually real objects. I had the highest spy track quality possible on these contacts.
In this situation, I actually started recording on all 4 tapes at the same time. That way, it was a one continuous loop, and I was just replacing them as they were, becoming full.
We failed utterly to identify these things. It didn't meet any of the parameters for anything that was known.
In some cases, they seem to descend from space and then suddenly plunge to near sea level in seconds. Coupled with the unidentified nature of the craft and lack of clearance, these extreme flight observations are very troubling to the crew assigned to protect the carrier group from aerial threats. Sunday, November 14th, morning. The Nimitz deck crew is busy launching FA-18F Super Hornets, helicopters, and E-2 Hawkeye early warning planes. The mission? Simulated air defense, or ADAX training over the Pacific. The winds are calm, the skies are clear, a near perfect day for flying. As they launch, the Black Aces Squadron has no knowledge of events happening nearby.
In the back of my mind, that's when I determined I was going to become concerned about these objects, is we were getting ready to launch a whole bunch of aircraft in that same piece of sky.
Fast Eagle climbs out to 20,000 feet and heads to the cap station about 40 miles south of the carrier. The cap is a rendezvous point used to form up with the other airplanes.
Just 25 miles separation.
The commander of Fast Eagle has over a decade in the air wing. His wingman for the day is a new pilot, a young officer on her first carrier deployment. She's paired with a senior pilot, her backseat weapons system officer for the mission. He will manage navigation and the advanced radar and targeting pods on the aircraft. Overhead, an E-2 Hawkeye from the Wallbanger Squadron is on station directing the aircraft. Banger provides eye-in-the-sky command and control during carrier flight operations. Back in the Combat Information Center on Princeton, the mysterious objects are back. And today is the first time Senior Chief Day has jets in the air that can intercept the mysterious aircraft.
Seeing these contacts, Captain Smith orders me to intercept one of them. So I went back to the console. I picked the closest one that was to us, and I had intended to let the Hawkeye do the intercept because I already had control. It was just easier.
Day briefs the captain, and they agree to send the Hornets. The air intercept controller aboard Princeton, call sign Charlie, radios the Hawkeye and takes control of Fast Eagle.
Banger, Charlie. Charlie, this is Banger, good. Banger, Charlie, do you hold unknown air contact, bra, 27048, 28,000 feet, bogey. Charlie, Banger, negative, radar picture's clean.
The E-2 radar operators have been frustrated in their attempts to get a radar return on the unknown aerial target that Princeton is tracking. Even with their 24-foot radar dish, they can't get a lock on the object.
Banger, Charlie. Transfer Fast Eagle flight to Charlie Control, button 13. We have a real-world tasking for them. Charlie, Banger, roger. Fast Eagle, Charlie, stand by for real-world tasking.
Charlie, Fast Eagle, send it.
We vector them towards that position in the sky, and real quiet on the radio. I'm just giving them BRA calls, which is bearing range altitude, to these unknown bogey group. And basically I'm just telling their crew where the object is, the bearing from them, and the range from them, and the altitude, so they can drive towards it.
Contact BRA 27041, 20,000 feet, bogey, snap, 270, over.
Roger, bearing 270, 41 miles. 100, go trail.
100.
Stay.
Stay 12,000 pounds. Clean, do you have it?
I'm trying to get a track on it now. They said link 16, but my radar picture is clean.
The next radio call takes everyone by surprise.
Fast Eagle 110, say loadout. 110, what's your weapons loadout?
Yeah, the Tactical Action Officer, the TAO, jumps on the radio. Her name was Lieutenant Elders, and she just point blank asked the Fast Eagle flight if they were carrying any type of weapons. And there was a stunned pause on the radio.
Wings clean, Princeton. We just have CAT-M training missiles, and they're not coming off the rail.
We're in an exercise environment, and the last thing we wanted to do is start shooting stuff.
Now the controllers have the pilot's undivided attention. Normally, the squadron doesn't carry live ordnance when training.
What do you guys think that was about?
What, about the loadout? I have no idea. Maybe it's drug runners or something. Yeah, it could be. Or a lost cessna out of SoCal.
I don't like this.
Fast Eagle Charlie, contact BRA 16034, 8,000 feet, bogey.
Roger, 34 miles at 8,000. Committed, your call, continuing.
As Fast Eagle approaches the target, they see nothing unusual. Their onboard radars can't get a lock on the object.
Fast Eagle Charlie, BRA 16010, 8,000 feet.
Roger.
Fast Eagle Charlie, merge plot.
Basically what the merge plot means on the radar, you got two objects in the same vertical piece of sky, so when I'm looking at the 2D display, it looks like a one radar blob now.
Confirm the object appears stationary.
I had it at 17.7. Showing, again, basically no airspeed on it.
Hey, you guys seeing us? What is that?
As the Super Hornets approach the target, they see a disturbance on the ocean surface. It's about the size of a 737, and it looks like something could be just below the surface.
100, anchor here, Angels 2-4.
Roger.
Charlie, Fast Eagle. We're observing something in the water here, possibly aircraft in the water at the merge plot, just north of our position, about 2 miles.
Charlie, roger.
I'm descending to Angels 14 to take a look.
Do you think that's our unknown?
Man, not sure. Radar's clean.
As soon as he got to the merge plot position, the object that he was intercepting dropped from 28,000 feet down to 50 feet above the water in 0.78 seconds, as I found out later the next day.
As the Super Hornets get closer to the ocean disturbance, he suddenly spots another craft above it, a much smaller white object with an oblong shape, hovering, then darting just above the waves. The object is moving around erratically, seemingly focused on the white water. The shape is similar to a tic-tac. It's smooth like porcelain. It's not an airplane. Suddenly, the object begins to rise into the air.
know it's coming up. 2 miles.
The strange craft begins mirroring the turn rate of Fast Eagle.
21 Gate, 287, 2 miles, Angels 5.
The object is now at his 3 o'clock position as he continues to turn with it.
He's turning hard at 3,000 meters.
We had the external communications in the speaker in combat so everyone could listen to it. And the next thing I hear in the radio going, oh my God, I'm engaged, I'm engaged.
1,000 meters, he's southwest, Angels 8.
The commander is now about a mile away as he maneuvers his Hornet to get behind the unknown craft. It's about the size of an F-18, about 47 feet long, and it has no wings. As the dogfight unfolds, he quickly turns and dives to bring his jet's nose ahead of the object to close the distance. Suddenly, the tic-tac rockets past. It's gone beyond the horizon in the blink of an eye.
I saw it go 137. No tally.
That didn't just happen. Say again.
Fast Eagle Charlie, sir, you're not going to believe this, but the bogey group is now back at your cap station.
As Fast Eagle returns to the area of the ocean disturbance, the object is gone, and the sea is once again calm. Soon, they land on the ship. Back on board Banger, the flight crew has been listening to the radio transmissions from Fast Eagle. The crew has been tracking the intercepts on their advanced display systems called the CEC. One of the radar operators, who wishes to remain anonymous, describes hearing the fear in the pilots' voices, and he knows this is no drill.
I had a good friend who flew on the Hawkeyes. We've been calling him Roger to protect his identity because he didn't want to come forward at this time, but he wanted to contribute to the story to verify that it actually happened. So there were 5 people in the airplane. Roger would have been seating in the radar officer seat, which is towards the back middle of the plane. To the side of each one of them or behind them, depending how the chair's rotating, is a window.
Suddenly, his attention is drawn to something outside the Hawkeye. He and the entire crew watch in disbelief as a tic-tac object suddenly forms up on their E2 and then just as quickly shoots away from sight. The crew is left in disbelief. As Banger returns to the ship, the crew is shaken. The highly unusual events are troubling, but what happens next has haunted them to this day. U.S. Navy officers quickly arrive and escort the aircrew to a secure space on the ship. As the crewmen begin to take off their flight gear, an officer begins the debriefing by telling them this event did not happen, and they are given non-disclosure agreements to sign. They are warned to never discuss this event again.
Again, we're preparing for the air defense exercise. So now we got all the squadrons launching off the carrier because they're all up going to do their functional check flights.
Senior Chief Day watched in disbelief as the tic-tac UFOs reacted to the incoming fighter jets.
All the objects in the sky, they all dropped out of the sky from 28,000 feet down to 50 feet.
Based on the Spy 1 Bravo radar system, the object descended at over 24,000 miles an hour.
It was unbelievable because normally what would happen if a normal aircraft did that? First of all, it would fly apart. It wouldn't be able to withstand the G-forces, and there would be multiple sonic booms. It would be boom, 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 and this did not make any sonic booms.
From what I observed, I saw that it went from, right around between 25 and 30,000 feet down to sea level and below sea level.
Contact. Tag number 042.
Below sea level was confirmed to me by the actual sonar techs that were in combat, in communications with other techs that had said they had an active track on it under the water. They're talking with their sonar guys on the sub that was with us, and I mean, I was told directly that it did go underwater. It went from being in the air to underwater. From what they were saying, it was going averaging about 500 knots under the water. So it did slow down when it hit the water, but it didn't affect it inertially.
After the intercepts, both Kevin and Gary climbed up to the ship's bridge wing to get a better view of the objects through the binoculars.
We go up to the bridge wing and look at them through the big eyes, which is heavily magnified binoculars that are out on the bridge wing of the ship.
Even when I was off watch, I was usually up in combat anyway, and I was sitting at the console. I just picked the closest object to us, and I got the relative bearing from the ship, slave over to the relative bearing at about the right altitude, and saw this white light in the sky.
The movements were smooth to erratic. They just moved from one point to another. It was always a very sharp and clean movement. It always felt like a constant speed, not like speeding up. Just it needed to go to that point, and it decided to do it at this speed. And then it would just go from nothing to the speed they were going to go, and then stop at the next point.
Meanwhile, back on the Nimitz, aviation tech Patrick Hughes is working to secure the classified data recorders from the Hawkeye that encountered the Tic Tac.
We pull out their hard drives. We call them RMCs. We call them bricks because they physically heavy like a brick. But they contain the software to run the airplane. And they also record a lot of the data that the aircrew sees during the flight. So we take the removable stuff, we take it out, we go downstairs, back to our shop.
Patrick's job involves tracking the chain of custody of the hard drives.
Then we open up the safe, put them in the safe. We've got tracking sheets so we know what RMCs are on what airplane. We know who signed them out, who put them in the airplane, who took them out of the airplane.
As he gets ready to wrap up the mission, there's a knock on the door.
Our commanding officer's there, two other guys in flight suits, who I'm assuming were Air Force officers, because pretty sure that's the insignia they had on. But they were not on the ship earlier. I did not see them come on the ship, so I'm not sure how they got there. But the skipper basically said, I need the bricks off the flight. We opened the safe, we put them in the bags. He took them, he took his two anonymous officers and left.
The officers, with the classified hard drives in hand, soon board an HS-60 Seahawk helicopter and leave Nimitz. Soon thereafter, Petty Officer Voorhees has his own visit by unknown officials on the Princeton.
Once they landed and everybody got off, then about maybe 20 minutes later, I got called in to have all my data recording tapes turned over. And then also told that I needed to reload CEC because it had been wiped. So it was. So I turned over all the tapes, and then they also said if there's any even blank tapes to erase anything else that's in the shop. Well, they were plainclothes people that came aboard on the helicopter. It was my chain of command that took control of the tapes from me. The helo left with them after that, so because we went right back to flight ops.
The link between the Tic Tacs and these men is unknown. How they became aware of the UFO encounters and how they arrived so quickly on board after the event is also a mystery. The video you are now watching is the actual gun camera FLIR footage of the Tic Tac taken by a later flight. This is the first video ever released by the U.S. government showing military planes engaging UFOs. The advanced targeting pod, known as ATFLIR, works in both TV mode and infrared mode. The film reveals no control surfaces, no exhaust plume, a uniform heat signature, and no visible means of propulsion. Gary and his shipmates saw the FLIR film on their consoles and on the secret LAN aboard the Princeton.
It was a much clearer video. You could see the shape of the ship. You could see it, moving. I tried to go and get a disc to come make a copy of it, and by the time I got back, it was already off of our hard drive, off the secret LAN. No access to it whatsoever.
Petty Officer Jason Turner also saw a much higher resolution version of the FLIR film showing strange appendages extending from the object.
But it did have some protruding at the bottom of it. I couldn't tell if they were curled back or straight down.
Jason says the video was approximately 10 minutes in length and much longer than the video that has been released.
I saw this video playing and I'd ask him, is this what we're training, or what's part of this training that we're going through? And he said, no, this is real life. And when I saw it, it was a very clear image, a very clear video, and this thing was going berserk, like making turns, like it's incredible. The amount of G-forces that it would put on a human that this thing was doing. The jets were like trying to trail this thing, and it would just run off and leave them. It would just poof, gone, and then it would come back, and then you would see it, and then it made a maneuver, like they were chasing it straight on. It was going with them. This thing stopped, turned, and just phew, gone. That's the only way to describe what it looked like.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
Just 11 years later, fighter jets from USS Roosevelt filmed this anomalous object in 2015.
Well, if there's anything, it's rotating.
Like the Nimitz encounter, they too were conducting routine training when fleets of UFOs were encountered by the pilots. The Nimitz encounters remained cloaked secrecy for over 13 years. The first-hand testimony about UFO sightings is practically unheard of from military service members. Thanks to the brave and honest accounts of the sailors and naval aviators who have come forward to relate their experiences, and of the remarkable videos they filmed that day, the silence has been broken.
I dealt with this all on my own for many, many years, and it was not a very pleasant journey to go through, because no one really believes you. But now things have changed, and anyone out there that's struggling with this and wants to reach out, there is now a group that you can reach out to and get help and support and vindication.
It's honestly been a little relieving to be able to actually talk about it and how important that event really was, and not just keep blowing it off. There's people out here that really need to know and want to know, and you have the support of me and Kevin and my other shipmates that have come forward and decided to talk about it.
My role is to describe the story and convince people that yes, this event really happened and these objects were really real, but what they are, I have no idea.
It is something. I want to know what it is. That's the whole reason I chose to come forward to contribute to the story, because there is a story here, there is more information here. The more of us that talk about it, the better chance of the full story coming together.
And it's vindication for us that other people are looking into it, and we finally tell our story and people listen.
If you need to get a hold of us or would like to talk to any of us, Kevin, me, or any of the other guys that have come forward, there'll be an email address at the end of this video that you can contact.